All right. All right, we are recording. Hey, thank you all for being here. One thing I want to point out is if you need it, there are, if you hit the closed caption button, you should be able to get live captioning. It's not perfect. It's just an API that does voice recognition, but it's hopefully better than nothing. I've had people kind of express that that's helpful for kind of like focus issues and things like that. So, so take advantage of that if you need it. And that transcript will be available when we post the video, so we're recording. We're actually going to post this to YouTube, sometime tonight after we're done. So you'll be able to kind of get back to the call. But anyway, I'm Andrew. I'm the founder of Collab Lab, and Collab Lab is the sponsor of this Tech Talk series, this meetup that we do. And super excited to have Mindy here to talk to us about PDAC. Is that how you say it? Pdac, PEDAC, which is a problem-solving framework. And Mindy, love Mindy. Mindy was in the second cohort of Collab Lab way back in November 2019. So she's been around the community for a while and has recently, I think, decided to be a mentor, right? Is that true?
Yes.
Yes, all right, that's what I like to hear. Cool. So very excited about that. Mindy is a software engineer at New Relic and a former math teacher. So good person to present this, this material. Before I hand it off to you, I'm just going to say a little spiel about the Collab Lab since we're sponsoring this. The Collab Lab is a US-based nonprofit that offers experiential learning in the form of project practice for remote teams of early career developers. So our mission is to help early career people, especially people from underrepresented groups, get jobs in tech. So a lot of barriers that are there for early career people in general, but especially if you come from certain kind of underrepresented groups. So we offer this kind of project practice, I guess, in the form of we get small teams together with mentors who are professionals in the field. They work on a project for 8 weeks and learn a bunch of collaboration skills, how software teams work in real, kind of in the real world. So something that's hard to simulate if you're just studying on your own or in a boot camp or something. It's a lot of fun. And we are starting to offer more in the way of kind of career prep and career services. So yeah, we've been around for about 1.5 years and have a good sized community now, like 140, 150 people or something that are kind of involved, either as alums or actively kind of doing a project or just are a pretty big mentor group as well. So anyway, we are opening up our applications soon for the next cohort. So I'll post a link to that, a URL where you can sign up to get notified if you are an early career person and this sounds like it's something that might be helpful for you. Go to this URL and you can be notified when the application window opens for the next cohort. So we're going to run a cohort per quarter all year long with 4 or 5 teams in each one. So with all that said, I'll hand it off to you, Mindy. So glad to have you here.
Awesome. Thanks, Andrew. I'm excited to be here, excited to share a tool that I found super useful with all of you. Yeah, so let's get into it. So welcome. Glad to have you all here. As a quick introduction, Andrew already mentioned, my name is Mindy Zwanziger, and I'm a software engineer at New Relic. I entered tech as a former middle school and high school teacher. I was kind of looking for a different career path. And to make the switch, I attended an online coding school called Launch School, which I like to describe as halfway between a boot camp and self-study. Has a lot of the structure of a boot camp, but it's self-paced, kind of like self-study. Really great opportunity for me there. Really enjoyed my time at Launch School. I also have Collab Lab and Agile PDX's mob programming workshop listed here under education because so much of software engineering goes beyond, can I technically do this? And into the realm of, can I communicate this effectively? And both of these organizations taught me some of those incredibly crucial skills. Just a couple logistics to get out of the way right at the top. There is a GitHub repo that's available with some of the resources that we're going to be going through. It's helpful. It's not 100% necessary, but any means. But if you wanted to head on over to github.com/MindyZwan/Pdac workshop, might find that helpful. I'll give you just a minute to do that. Also, we'll be keeping an eye on the Zoom chat. So if you have a question, please be sharing that. I'll stop periodically throughout the talk as well to kind of answer those questions. And then lastly, we are going to be doing some breakout rooms, just a couple of them. And so just be prepared for that. You're going to want to be able to communicate with the people in your group. So speaking of, the first thing we're going to do is actually a breakout room. And I'm going to ask that you do 2 different tasks. And we're going to be about 5 minutes in the breakout room. The first task is just an icebreaker, so go ahead and share your name, and then something that made you happy this week. Now, those can tend to go long, so please try to keep that succinct because it's only 5 minutes and you are probably going to have 4 to 5 people in your group. The second task is to decide who's going to share the screen and take notes. So ideally, we'll have one person who's doing that. Can use whatever program you're comfortable with. It could be a code editor like VS Code. You can also just use Google Docs. Whatever it is that makes you feel most comfortable is totally fine. Also, if you do happen to have time to practice sharing your screen during this, that is great. Just get some of those technical issues out of the way. Before we actually break, I do want to emphasize just a couple quick ideas. One of them is that we are all at very different points in our journey, and I want this workshop to be accessible to folk at any stage. So one thing in particular, please avoid using the word easy or any synonym of that. And also, if at all possible, avoid jargon while you're talking. Also, just do your best to allow everyone an opportunity to speak and contribute. Try to keep this as inclusive as a space as possible. So yeah, I'll pass that over to Andrew. If you could go ahead and set people up with those breakout rooms, that'd be great.
Yeah, I had it all set and then a couple people dropped out. So I'm gonna have to recreate these really quick. Just bear with me, it should only take a minute.
Breakout room scared them, I guess.
Yeah, I think that might be true, actually. That's all right. All right, cool. So I'm gonna open the rooms. I put a link in the chat to a screenshot of these instructions. So I don't know if the chat will be, I guess the chat will still be available to you once you're in the room. So, but yeah. All right, off you go. I think. Yep, bye.
Looks good.
You have to manually join the room. Miles, you might need to hit a button there. All right. I don't know how to, one thing I don't know how to do is to set a time limit on the rooms. So.
Oh, we should, it's 5:11 right now.
Okay, and how much time did you say?
5 minutes.
Okay. I can, when we get close, I can send a message to everybody.
Okay.
Oh, hello. Hi, Ashley. We're in breakout rooms, so I'm gonna assign you to a room if that's okay. There's and actually maybe there's a link in the chat to the instructions for the room. It's the slide that's currently up, but once you're in the room, you won't be able to see the slide. So I'm gonna add you to a room. And you should be able to go off to the room and meet your group.
All right, I'm gonna go run and grab some water real quick because my water bottle is empty.
All right. Just so you know, Mindy, you're still screen sharing.
Thank you. I forgot about that.
Hello. Is it Yomar? Is that right? We lost Ashley too, by the way. As soon as I said breakout rooms, she was howdy 5,000. So
I wondered, like, as soon as you said that, I was like, I wonder if the breakout rooms, like, I know some people don't like to interact or are in a position where they're not able to.
mm-hmm. Yep. All right, so I'm gonna let everybody know.
Does make me a little nervous having Pete in here. It's like, what if I say something wrong? I know I will. It'll be fine. I definitely do say things a little bit differently. I think the launch school is a fairly stickler on like their exactness of things, and I'm just not.
That's fine. I think when I hit close all rooms, it's going to ask me how much time before the rooms close, but I'm not 100% sure. So I'm kind of waiting to like split the difference, you know. But oh, okay. All breakout rooms will close in 60 seconds. Okay, I didn't have a choice for that. Oh well, it's all right. People
That's
coming
right
back
anyway.
Yeah. Welcome back. Another 30 seconds before the rooms force people back here. So Tyler, I love your Zoom background.
Thank you.
Yeah, super cool.
Are they just different? Wait, what is it?
Are they birds?
Are they birds?
I think they're baboons.
Oh yeah.
Huh.
We're like baboons with Zoom filters on their faces or something.
They're all in a court hearing right now.
Exactly. All right, I think everybody's back.
Awesome. All right, well, let's keep moving. So welcome back. Hopefully you all had an opportunity to share and get to know each other a bit. We're gonna dive right in and start kind of with a broad look at what Pdac is, why it's helpful, and then move on to an example in the next section. As many of you likely guessed, Pdac is an acronym. It stands for problem, examples, data structure, algorithm, and code, which are the 5 steps that are involved in the framework. And digging in just a little bit more, the first thing that we're going to do is try to understand the problem. Then we're going to create some examples, determine the data structure that's most helpful for our particular problem, write out an algorithm, and then finally get down to code. Now, some of you might be asking, why would we do all of this? That's a lot of work just before we even get to coding. And I think there's a quote that I think really shows this idea well. There's some idea that someone asked a woodsman like how they would cut down a tree in 5 minutes. And they responded by saying that they'd spend the first 2.5 minutes sharpening their axe. Taking the time to work through these steps leads to a more effective process where you're coding with intention. You know what and how you're going to accomplish the task, and you can better communicate the assumptions, decisions, and requirements to interviewers or coworkers. Also, especially with practice, Pdac allows you to focus on one tiny little step at a time, which hopefully will slowly help calm you as you step into that kind of well-practiced routine. All right, so here we go. I'll bring up a problem and we're going to code our way through the answer using Pdac. So here's our problem. It says, write a function that returns true if the string passed as an argument is a palindrome, or false otherwise. I'm going to bring up VS Code here for a minute. Ignore my Slack because I forgot that was there. All right, so I have VS Code open here. And the problem is iterated up at the top. The first step is P, understanding the problem. And the idea here is to really just look closely at the information that's available. And there's a lot that we can find there. Something I like to start off with, just kind of gives me that first step every time, is listing out the input and the output. What's going into this and what do we expect out? In this case, our input is a string and our output is a Boolean. So that's kind of the explicit requirements here. Something else that's helpful for a lot of folk is to restate the problem in a simpler way, kind of get rid of the fluff and get it down to the bare bones of the problem. So something that might look like is return true if string is palindrome, false if not. Much more succinct. And some problems are a lot larger, so breaking it down into something a lot smaller could be very helpful for you in understanding what's there. This step also gives you an excellent opportunity to ask questions, whether it's to your interviewer, your coworker, your client, or even just to yourself if you're working on it. You might need to better understand the problem, the world that the problem is in. Maybe you're not sure, for instance, what a palindrome is or a different word, right? So let's see here. We could say like, what is a palindrome? And our answer there is that a palindrome, it's when text is read the same backwards or forwards. In other words, a string reversed is equal to the string itself. So you also might need to ask some questions to find some implicit requirements that are there, things that aren't stated straight out. For example, is it case sensitive? If we have a capital T, taco cat, is that a palindrome? Or is it just if it's all lowercase? And for the sake of time, we're going to go ahead and say that yes, it is case sensitive. So taco cat with a capital T is not a palindrome, and taco cat with a lowercase t is a palindrome. There's a lot you can dig into here. And the more you do, the easier the rest of the steps will be. Though the good news is you can always come back to this step, and I do a lot. There are often things that I discover as I go along. Oh, that's a question that I didn't ask. I should have looked at that, and let me go back and ask that question or figure out the answer to that. And that's totally okay and totally something you can do. Moving on to the next step, we have examples and test cases. And I can't tell you how many times I've gone through creating a few examples and realized I 100% misunderstood the problem. I would have gone the completely wrong direction if I had actually started coding, and it saved me so much work in the long run. So it can help to just start off with some plain language examples. So let's see here. Let's separate this out a little bit. This is the problem section. Move on down to the example section. If you just want to do plain language, you could do that. Taco cat is a palindrome. Another example would be spaghetti cat. That's not a palindrome. And then moving on from there, you can start to put it into formatting as though you're actually like using a function, and that can be really useful because you can use it as test cases later when you're actually running your code to make sure that it's working as you expected. So if we had a function called isPalindrome and we passed in taco cat, we would expect that to return true. If we passed in spaghetti cat, we would expect to see that return false. And your goal here is to consider every valid input and make a test case for it. So, we talked about case sensitivity earlier. If we had that capital T, would we expect that to return true or false? Well, we would expect that return false. This is also often where I end up finding things that I didn't ask earlier. So things like if we have something that's not alphabetical, if it's not an alphabetical character, for instance, a space. Oh, what is that? Is that a palindrome or not? So going back up to this step before, the problem step, and asking that question. Oops, I went too far. There you go. Does it include non-alphabetical characters like punctuation, white space, etc.? And for the sake of time, we're going to go ahead and say, yes, it does again. So in this situation, that space does make it so this is not a palindrome. If we're looking at other examples in that same vein, we could say, what if we have a number in there? And that would actually return true. How about if we have some punctuation? That's going to return false. Another thing we want to try to do is think of some edge cases, some things where, what you don't necessarily expect to see, or something that's a little weird, some input that's a little odd. For instance, an empty string is one that I often jump to. And again, in this case, some people will tell you, no, this isn't a palindrome, but in the idea of a string reversed is the same as the string original string. An empty string reversed is still an empty string. So I'm going to go ahead and say that yes, that is true. If we have just a single letter, that's a little bit odd. But yes, that is also the same backwards and forwards. Another one that someone came up during the last meetup that I did, or the last time I did this talk, was what if it's an even number of letters? Because we don't have any instances here where it's even numbers, and that's a great one. So if I do ATTA, I would still expect to see that one return true. So just trying to get as many different edge cases, as many different valid inputs that you could into those examples is going to be really helpful later as you're working through the problem. So I'm going to take a quick moment and break for some questions. Take a look at the chat. If you have any in the last couple slides and you want to pop those in now, feel free. Looks like we have an example from Lennie where you have a situation where we're putting another palindrome inside.
Presumably that would return true. I know the quotes aren't right, but.
Oh, I see. Doing this.
Just like concatenating palindromes together with one in the middle. Presumably that would be true also.
But would the capital T be an issue?
Oh yeah, the capital T would be an issue.
That's an odd one. Yeah, presumably. The strings are a little funky. I might add that one in a little bit later here. So that one is a little odd. Oops.
Yeah, I don't think you could pass in the concatenation as a argument anyway.
Yeah, it might have to be a variable. I'm like, I'm not sure about that. So, okay. All right, moving on. Okay, so data structures is the next step here. And truthfully, I struggled with this one for a while. Sometimes it was really obvious, and that was part of why I struggled. The whole problem was talking about arrays, and I was like, well, of course you're going to use arrays. And I was looking for something a little bit harder. I was like, there's got to be something more to this because it's just talking about arrays. Of course it's arrays. And sometimes it really is just, it's quite clear to you. Sometimes it's not going to be. Another issue here is that it often taps into your pre-existing knowledge of a language, which can make it hard for folks who are new to that language in particular. I also want to mention, I went to a programming workshop once, a mod programming workshop around Conway's Game of Life, and spent at least 10 minutes discussing with the whole group, what's the best use case here? Do we want to use a nested array, a regular array, a tuple? So sometimes this can take a long while, and sometimes it can be very quick. Oftentimes it's a bit of brainstorming. What are the pros and cons of using different data structures? It also really ties into how you approach the next step. So it can be pretty important to make this decision early on. I'm going to use, I'm using JavaScript here, and I know how to reverse an array in JavaScript. So we're going to use arrays to solve the problem. And sometimes it's as simple as that, just using what you're comfortable with. The algorithm then is just a step-by-step procedure for solving a problem. You can use a lot of different tools for this. I know some folk use pseudocode in particular. I like to just use plain language, just walking through what do I expect to have happen at each different step here. So an example of that, something I would do is I would start off by splitting the string into an array of characters. Then I'm going to go ahead and reverse the array. I'm going to join the array back into a string. And then finally return true or false if the original string is equal to the reversed string. This can be pretty rough. I know some folk get stuck on this, and sometimes it helps to take an example and consider like what your brain is doing and coming up with what you expect the result to be. Like, how did you get from A to B? For example, if we're talking about palindromes, sometimes you have to look at the first letter and read and see, like, does your brain go backwards and read the same thing? How does your brain figure out the problem when it's not a coding problem? Sometimes that can be really helpful. I'll also say that this is a lifesaver for me. I've lost my cool in the middle of coding a problem in the middle of a technical interview, and referring back to this algorithm is to reorient, like, where am I? What is it I'm supposed to be doing next? Has been incredibly helpful. All right, and then lastly, we're going to finally get down to coding. So we're going to start off, we have our function, we know what it's going to be called. We know the input is a string. We'll call it text. And then we can just follow our algorithm, starting off by splitting the string into an array of characters. And then we're going to reverse that array. And then return or join the array back into a string. Sorry, excuse me. And then lastly, we return true or false if the original string is equal to the reversed string. Now, I know a lot of you are like, there's a lot easier ways to do that. Yes, there is. I just wanted to follow the algorithm exactly. And a wonderful thing and a point I'd love to make is oftentimes when we get into technical interviews, we're worried about, or even just working with your coworkers, you're worried about getting to the best solution possible right away. And that can actually cause you to kind of seize up and feel like, oh, I don't really know what I'm doing, or I can't seem to do this. Oftentimes what you really want to do is to get something working first, and then if you have time to go back and refactor it. So doing something that might not be like the most concise way or even the most clear way necessarily, like start off with what works and then refactor to make it into something that's more useful. All right, I'm going to take another break here. Do we have any other more questions so far?
I love that point. As someone who hires people, I would much rather see the person just do the naive, simple implementation, especially even, like even if they know that there's a better way to do it, just to kind of go to that, get it working, and then I can follow up and say, like, are there any other ways you can do that more efficiently, or like, what are the implications of doing it this way? But there's nothing wrong with, any other developer would be able to look at this and be like, oh, I know what's going on. So that's actually really good code in that sense.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks, Andrew.
With the data structure step, you mentioned you just kind of go with the one you're most comfortable with. Two questions. Do you like sort of actively consider different data structures just to see which one might work better? Or the other question is, do you pretty much just use an array or hash every time, or using some of those more exotic ones? Does it impress people, or does it just kind of seem kind of silly? Or is it pretty much just always an array or a hash?
Are you talking specifically like in technical interviews? Or
Yeah.
It's hard to say what I've done, like if I always revert to an array or hash, because it's been a while already and I've only done a handful of them. So I'm not sure what I personally do. I definitely will consider, thinking through again, like what I mentioned as far as like wanting to get something that works versus something that's perfect, exactly what it is that you want and what looks the best. In your mind, whatever that looks like. Sometimes it is, again, just if you go with what's comfortable, especially in an interview situation, you're going to probably feel more relaxed and be able to get further through the problem than otherwise. It's one of those situations too where I feel like oftentimes at the end of interviews, you can kind of talk to the interviewer and talk about things that you might do differently, or if you'd approached it with a different data structure, like what would that have looked like? Can give you an opportunity to talk about some of those more fancy data structures we're still showing that you're able to get the problem done and get the work done.
That totally makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. And I did forget to do the one thing that is always exciting to me. So we have this function. We already have a bunch of test cases. So what we can do is go ahead and take all of these test cases, copy and paste them down, and console log the whole thing. Make sure we get what we actually expect to get. So we have true, false, 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 true, false, true, true, true. So now you know that your code works as you expect it to. And I think this is also very impressive to the person that's interviewing you if you're in an interview. Yeah, great opportunity to use what you just worked on. So just as a review, we have our 5 different steps here. So you first start off by understanding the problem. Some things you can do there is restating the problem. You're looking for those implicit and explicit requirements. Moving on into the next step is creating examples and test cases. So try to consider all of the valid inputs and expected outputs. Think through all of those different edge cases as you can, and then get to use the tests at the end as test cases, which is wonderful. And then you can determine your data structure, brainstorm different pros and cons of different data structures. The next step is to write an algorithm. So writing out step by step the process that you're expecting to solve. It can be in plain language. And then lastly, going to actually start coding. So you're following your algorithm and you're testing functionality as you go, especially if it's a larger problem. We didn't quite do that today in today's example, but if it is a larger problem, testing it as you go can be very helpful. So our next step is we're actually going to do a breakout. We have two different problem options for you. I know a couple of you joined me in a different earlier meetup on this. So I've included two different problems. So as a group, you can decide what you'd like to do there. And you're going to just have this one task. It's going to be 15 minutes. And you're going to try and solve 15 minutes. Let's see here. Yeah, 15 minutes is great. I just want to double check that. Solve the problem using Pdac. So get as far as you can. Remember practicing kindness with the folk in your group. For the first 4 steps there, try to do that together. And then for coding, you can either do that as a group if whoever is leading feels comfortable with that, or the person who's driving feels comfortable with that. Or if you'd rather just code separately, that's totally fine as well. That way you can use whatever language or languages are most comfortable for you. So here are the 2 different problems. I'd like you to choose one as a group. The first one is problem number 1, given a string, produce a new string with every other word removed. And number 2 is given a string, produce a new string with all palindromes uppercased. And I think, okay, yes. So Andrew, if you could do your magic and separate folks out into their groups again, that'd be great.
Yep, for sure. Here's that last link is the 2 different problems. So 15 minutes. So I guess at 55 after we will come back. Have fun. Click your buttons. Join your room, join your room. Cool. Excellent.
I really am much more nervous having Pete in here.
Oh no.
I know. Part of it's also so when I finished the launch school, like the last course that I did, because I actually technically never finished. The last course I did, I had a technical interview on JavaScript with Pete, and like just stumbled over a bunch of stuff, and so like I just have that in my head still of just like, oh no, I'm gonna mess up. Oh dear, such is life.
Yeah. This is, I was gonna say, like, see, if I were to see this in an interview and a person had this structure of an approach and they had test cases and all that kind of stuff, I'd be like, yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Like one less thing I have to teach you.
100%. I feel like I was talking to Scott with Scott Burglar with the donut app thing, which
nice.
I love.
Yeah.
It's super fun.
Cool.
And we were talking about like just the need for communicating everything you're doing during a technical interview, and he was saying that was something that was like that he thinks he could get better at, and we were talking about like how you know during the New Relic Ignite program, like that or process hiring process, that's a big key thing that they're looking for, is that ability to communicate.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's like the difference between an early career person succeeding or not, you know. Like if you're either like afraid to admit that you don't know something, or afraid to ask questions, or just not good at sort of reporting the fact that the thing isn't going how you'd want it to or something. Like those are all things that get you in so much trouble that, like, not trouble in the sense of like, you know, somebody wagging their finger at you, but it just like means you're putting things at risk. As a manager, I'd much rather people just surface the fact that like, oh, like we thought it would be done Friday, but it's going to be done the following Friday. I'd much rather know that on Tuesday than on Friday, you know? So just so that I can like rearrange, you know, it's often never, that stuff's never usually not a crisis. It's like, okay, well, we'll go back to the stakeholders and, you know, communicate different expectations and stuff. But I can't do that if I don't know what's going on. So
Yeah.
Communication's huge for sure.
Yeah. It's been interesting. I don't know if I've told you, I've been back and forth on a team at New Relic. So I started off, I was placed on the TDP Hero team, but I was by myself completely.
Oh no.
Yeah. So the first month of me working there was just me, like, because my manager was actually a director too. So I didn't have he was really busy, you know, had like a half an hour to talk every week. So it's just me, like I'm sitting there reading up as much as I can and like watching all the videos and trying to learn just a bunch of stuff, but it felt very like there wasn't a lot of structure. And eventually it wasn't going well. My manager had asked me, he's like, "Are you okay?" And I just broke down and was like, "No, I'm not."
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And I ended up, they put me on a team to like incubate with the EOPS team. And that was wonderful, like a wonderful group of people, wonderful. Like I really enjoyed all of the work that I was doing. I really felt very supported and was just learning a ton. And that was always supposed to be temporary. And then I was going to go back on the TDP Hero team. And we did hire another person, and one of the seniors from, from EOPS actually joined the TDP Hero team also. And so we broke off in December doing the TDP Hero team, like launching it. And I didn't really understand what TDP Hero meant when I first decided that was the team that I wanted to join. And then also because we weren't able to do the whole Ignite program where you like jump around to the different groups. And so because of COVID. Anyway, so I didn't really understand what TDP Hero was, and the vision for the team had changed dramatically. And I realized like what the new vision was. I'm like, this isn't something I really want to do. This isn't the kind of thing I want to work on. It felt like admin work to me. And there was more to it than that, but it felt very similar to the job that I had left at DKS, the civil engineering firm I worked at before.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this isn't what I want to do. So my manager actually ended up being able to put me back on EOPS. So I'm moving back over to EOPS next week.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, which is really exciting. I'm thrilled, couldn't be happier.
Nice.
But a lot of the TDP Hero work in particular was very communication based and very like just so much. You know, just making sure that everybody, like you're answering questions a lot of the time and creating documentation and doing just so much communicating all day long.
What does TDP stand for?
Oh yeah, TDP is Telemetry Data Platform.
Oh, okay.
So there's New Relic recently changed their structuring. So they have kind of their big offerings are Telemetry Data Platform, full stack observability, and AI or something else. It's AI stuff, but I can't remember. There might be a different name for it.
Okay.
So Telemetry Data Platform is like just ingesting a bunch of data, and you can use that. You don't actually have to use New Relic for it anymore.
Oh wow.
Use like Prometheus.
You have your own. Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
But then New Relic can still help you understand the data. Is that the idea?
I think so. Actually, I'm not entirely sure what that looks like, except for just exporting it out to something else. I don't know what access you have to like the dashboards and alerts and all of that sort of thing. I'm assuming that's only in full stack observability. If you get that tier.
Yeah. So this I like that concept of incubating. So that's basically, it sounds to me like what that is like, well, you're really fresh, you need to learn a bunch of stuff, so we're just going to put you on a team temporarily so you can kind of just ramp up and kind of upskill a little bit maybe, and then you'll be ready to like to leave the nest and go somewhere else to another team. Is that
Yeah.
that's kind of what it is? So is that they put you on teams that are just well set up to mentor? Is that the idea, or teams with a certain type of problem set, or?
Well, I mean, it was just me because I was the only one in that situation. I don't think
Oh,
they
okay.
plan on doing it regularly.
Oh, okay. So it's
yeah.
not like a regular feature of their onboarding or something like that.
No, I don't think so.
Hmm.
I'd assume not. I think I ended up on the team that I did because they were in the same org.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's
So-
usually something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because some places, like at Google, you interview to work at Google. You don't interview for a team. And then once you're in Google, they find you a team.
Mhm.
You know, so in that kind of situation, you could incubate for a while, like just get to know the systems, and like, you know, if you need to get better at Python, like maybe you're, you know, a Java program or something, like you can like do that, and then maybe they would find you a place. But so I don't know. I'm trying to think if that's like something that companies should do, like actually should have that as a structured thing.
I think it's something that they've talked about at New Relic, but I don't know how high they've talked about it, like in the
Mhm.
who's given the
Yeah.
thumbs up to that idea or what have you. But
Kind of cool.
yeah, it would be a great idea. We want to, you know, hire great people, whether they have an exact fit or not.
Mhm. Saw somebody leave. I think Miles left.
I see you're using the Zappy thing. Is you posted about that a while ago on Twitter, right? Like it's a Zapier thing.
Oh, I think probably Stacy posted about it.
Okay.
But yeah, it's so it used to be an internal tool, and now people outside can use it as well. But it's basically just for screenshotting and taking either videos or making GIFs. So we use it all day, every day, just to like, here's this feature that's not working right. You just do a little video of it and put it in your bug report or something.
That would be helpful.
Yep.
Did I tell you that when I was an admin, I used Zapier all the time?
Oh, really? Oh, nice.
Yeah. I introduced it to the rest of my company. Actually, they still use it, I believe. So.
Yeah, that's great. I use it all the time. It took me a while to really kind of get it. You know, like I get automation, and like it seemed like such a hassle to set up this thing. Like, oh, it takes so much time. I'd be better off just kind of doing it manually. But now I'm just like, anything I have to do twice, I'm just like, oh, do I have to do this again? I don't want to do this again. Make the machines do it.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah, we're in performance review cycle at work. So I looked, and I have 19 zaps that are running at Zapier. And then I use it, like we use it a ton at Collab Lab. And then I have like my personal account as well. So got zaps all over the place, doing all kinds of stuff.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's kind of fun. Okay, 4 minutes. I'll tell them all 4 minutes.
This time I added a few more minutes because last time it sounded like folks didn't get very far through the process.
I told them 3 minutes. Right. Remind me, did you grow up in Portland, or are you from? I feel like you're from Wisconsin or something. I don't know. Where are you from?
No, actually from McMinnville. So close.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, Wisconsin, McMinnville.
You
Pretty
know.
much the same thing. Okay, so you're from around here. All right.
My dad grew up in Minnesota, if there's that. I mean, so there's some Midwest, right?
All right. Yeah.
Vibes there.
I was just wondering if you know how to drive on snow.
I don't.
I guess it doesn't matter. Actually, no. It kind of doesn't matter if you know how to drive on snow if nobody else does.
Yeah, that's true.
So.
Yeah. My husband is from Enterprise, Oregon, where there's lots of snow. So he's pretty used to it. Although I feel like his snow is different than our snow here in the valley. Much drier.
Oh, all right.
We get all of the ice over here.
Yeah. Yeah. It's been such a mild winter. It's gonna be weird for it to be 20 degrees and snowing like a day, and 24 hours from now.
Yeah, I was my birthday's this weekend, and I don't
Oh.
remember there ever being snow on my birthday. Do you remember
Oh.
there being snow this time of year before?
I mean, I know
Particularly
this.
late.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, I remember one year. This might have been like back in the Stone Age when I was a kid, but there being snow like early April. So it happens once in a while, but it's pretty
Okay.
rare. But I feel like February. Well, February is, you know, there's February fake out. It's usually like, you know, pretty warm and stuff. But then I feel like February is also when we usually get the snow. Although when actually I take that back. Like 20 or 30 years ago, would be January would be ice storm month, which is always fun. You know, just like trees coated in ice, streets coated in ice, you know. But never seems to last all that long. So.
I remember there was a year in particular when I was I think like in middle school or high school where it was just particularly bad ice.
Yeah. Welcome back. I'll give him a minute, but
I think I accidentally hit enter.
oh, that's cool. How'd that go? I'm curious. Oh wait, Mindy's the facilitator. I'll stop.
Have a node and a data, right? This is your data, this is your pointer to the next element.
I feel like Mindy, you should do this for my team. You should do this presentation for my team at work.
Oh dear.
It's just a great approach. It's just so systematic, you know. I feel like the temptation. When you said, "Oh, there's this quote," you know, or whatever, I thought you were going to say the quote about that. What is it? 10 hours of coding can save an hour of planning. That
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's also applicable.
Cool. I think everybody's back.
Oh, okay, awesome.
Yep.
Well, this is the time when you all get to speak up. So I'm going to ask a couple different things from you. One, if you could go ahead and share in the chat as much as you have readily accessible, like what did you get for your first 4 here? The problem and examples, test cases, data structure and algorithm. Share which problem you chose and how far you got, so we can kind of share some notes. And then I'd love to hear from y'all. What do you think? Was it a helpful process? Was there a part that was particularly helpful or a part that was particularly difficult? Let's just talk it out.
Should someone say something? I was gonna say in our group, Chris took our notes and we were making pretty good time. Maybe she could, if she felt comfortable, she could speak out on it and how we broke something down.
Looks like we do have some stuff in chat, so maybe.
Oh.
I like we picked the same problem as Ben, and we had a hard time coming up with like implicit questions. So it's cool to see someone else's thought process.
Awesome. Yeah. I particularly enjoy looking at different people or how people approach a problem differently. I think is always useful. I think in particular, I always end up with the test cases, looking at other people's test cases, because I never come up with enough. Like I always miss a bunch of the edge cases. So watching and looking through those kind of always helped me see what other ways to think about things while I was working through problems. Anything else? It sounded like a difficult part was coming up with implicit requirements. Anything else that was stuck out as a difficult thing for anyone? Or awkward? Maybe not even difficult, just awkward or weird.
Not sure if it's difficult or awkward, but one of the interesting parts from our discussion, I think, was, and I see it in some other people's comments, was trying to figure out what is a word, and also what to do with punctuation. Those were both really, they sparked, there were several implicit requirements or questions that we had that we felt there were quick answers. Probably it's this, but those two, it stuck out as really interesting conversation pieces.
What is a word? Doesn't that sound very philosophical?
Yeah.
I was wondering, did anyone not use an array? It's always an array. It's never not array.
Sometimes it depends on the.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, if you're doing string manipulation, a lot of times arrays are probably the best way to, do operations on those strings. But if you're using something that's a little more complicated, doing something a little more complicated, or depending on the language that you're using, can mean that there might be a better structure to use.
And Zenzi, were you going to say something?
Well, I actually had a question. So I work a lot with JavaScript, and there are a lot of kind of methods that are available and things that you don't necessarily have to use one of the data structures, before you start manipulating whatever you're working on, whatever variable you might be working with. And I'm wondering, when you're in a coding challenge or job interview scenario, do you make yourself use a data structure even though you could probably just kind of loop and use, one of the standard methods, or, what kind of is the general practice?
I think it would depend on the interviewer, because sometimes they'll want to see that you're not just using like already simplified methods. Like they want you to do like the actual individual underlying methods to manipulate things. But I've heard that hash tables are always the best and most efficient way. So you should always have that on the top of your mind. That's a key value pair, a way to look things up. And it's usually one of the most efficient ways to look things up, rather than looping through something like a string or an array.
Yeah, I think that's right. Like the again, having interviewed a bunch of people, like it's like what I would want to see is like if you were to use a loop, or even if you were to nest a loop, like maybe that's a fine solution for something at this scale, but should be prepared to talk about the fact that that's not going to scale up to, like a dictionary length string or something. Like it's going to bog the system down. Like understanding the implications of what you're writing. So yeah, so hash table super efficient. It's always whatever. I don't know. I don't really know Big O notation very well, but it's just like a direct lookup for each of the values. But in a loop, like you can kind of get yourself in a bad situation. But there are times when a loop is fine. Like if you know that the input's going to be restricted to even 100 characters, it's going to be perfectly efficient. So just kind of knowing the trade-offs of the different data structures, I think, is what is going to impress somebody in an interview.
I have a question. So as you were saying, Andrew, like, would that be something you would bring up to your interviewer? Like, is the size of the input always going to be small, or is it going to grow? It's like, that's something you should ask them before you start, or are you just assuming?
Yeah, I think that'd be a great question for them. Say like, well, there's a way I could solve this, but like it wouldn't scale up to something that's 1,000 characters long. Like, what can I expect it to be to be the input here? And they'd be like, oh, she knows what she's talking about. This is great. Like it'll be, so I think that's great. And I think all those clarifying questions it's a way of exposing to the interviewee or interviewer that you like what your thought process is. So I think I'd love to hear that question in an interview personally.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think I'd reiterate the question thing too. I've heard from a lot of different hiring managers, like a lot of the technical interview process is wanting to hear how you what it's like to work with you, and if you don't know something, I think it's perfectly fine to either say like I don't know, like how, and then look for some input or some assistance, like how would you do this, or maybe not how would you do this exactly, but something along those lines, like and asking for more clarifying questions to kind of to get you started, I think is something that shows that you're somebody who doesn't have your ego in the way. That's an easy way to put it. You know, you're willing to be collaborative with the people that you're working with, and yeah, I think asking questions is a wonderful tool in an interview. It looks like we have a question. I'm also curious what is considered a library in your PDAC process. I don't think like library is kind of our outside of the PDAC process altogether.
Sorry, I must have misread the slide.
Oh, I mean,
You
I'm
had
thinking
like
about it a little bit.
things that were included.
Let me go back a little here and see what we can see. Dictionary, tuple, heap, linked list. Is that what you're talking about? Or was it a different slide?
Sorry, yes, dictionary is what I meant, not library.
Awesome. Okay.
So a hash table is a dictionary is a hash table. So dictionary is what Python calls a hash table.
Awesome. Oh, I had paused my share, so you didn't even see me scrolling through the different slides. I apologize. I had it up there. Awesome. Kind of wrap it up here. It was wonderful to meet with all of you. Just a couple of quick things, reminders of like why we want to do this. And we want to practice PDAC to code with intention, to communicate more effectively with the people you're working with, whether it's interviewer, coworker, client. Also, it really is, again, helpful for that interview stress, especially with practice. Like I can't reiterate that enough. The more comfortable you feel starting the process, the more it's going to help you through the process. So the more you do it, the better it'll be. Also want to give a couple credits, a couple for this slide, and then specifically this PDAC concept is from Launch School, which is where I went to code school. So thank you all for joining us. If you want to find me on Twitter, there's my handle. I also do have my email there, and I'm accessible. If you are a part of Collab Lab, feel free to reach out to me on the Slack there as well.
Nice. Thank you so much, Mindy. This was awesome. 2 weeks from today, we will have Aisha Blake, also from New Relic, giving a talk on observability. So hope you all can make it that time, but otherwise, thanks so much for coming, and yeah, have a good evening. See you later.
Thank you, Mindy.
Bye, everyone.
Yeah, take care.